Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. Well, in the last hour, we've heard that British Airways and Ryanair have cancelled hundreds of flights between the UK and parts of Europe and the USA due to the coronavirus. And just before I came on air, I spoke to Ben Clatworthy, the travel correspondent at The Times, and I asked him if these cancellations were down to passengers cancelling their flights.
Airlines are seeing a huge increase in the number of cancellations and also no-shows, largely because people are deciding not to travel. Many companies are changing their travel policies as well to try and prevent employees from travelling. And it just means that planes are flying half empty at the moment. The last thing that any airline wants to be doing is flying a plane that isn't full. At the moment they are, which is why lots of airlines are taking the stance, let's cancel flights now, let's decide early that we're going to cancel flights with the aim that they can then move the passengers who are booked and willing and happy to travel onto alternative flights, thus reducing the number of aircraft that are flying with half capacity. I
also asked him whether he thought other airlines would follow suit.
I think we're going to see more and more cancellations. Today, Lufthansa, the German airline, hacked back their flight schedules for the second time. EasyJet are also paring back their flying schedule. I think at the moment, particularly as people are so uncertain and we don't know how bad the situation is going to get, people are holding off booking. So I certainly think we'll see more cancellations in the coming days, if not weeks.
And I asked, what was the impact on the tourism industry in the UK?
Many companies are changing their travel policies, but one of the biggest impacts the British tourism industry is feeling at the moment is the lack of Chinese tourists. They make up a huge proportion of visitors to the UK, and it's drops off a cliff. They are simply not coming here. The travel restrictions mean they cannot leave China. But there is one small silver lining, that British holiday parks are seeing a huge increase in the number of bookings for the Easter holidays, as families say, well, actually this year we're certainly not flying anywhere overseas, not necessarily for fear of getting the virus, but for fear of being trapped and stuck in a hotel in quarantine for 2 weeks and saying, let's go on holiday in the UK.
Sounds like our motorways could be very busy this Easter. All of this on the day when Cobra met this morning. There'd been quite some criticism. Why had Boris Johnson not convened this earlier, having announced on Friday that he was taking charge? We're going to find out the full findings of that Cobra meeting tomorrow. What we do know is that they are preparing for absolutely every contingency. I can tell you, having flown out to America last week and having flown back from America last week, not just my plane, but another plane that some colleagues of mine were on, they estimated was 90% empty. That was a plane going from London to Washington, D.C. I won't name the airline, it wouldn't be fair. But it sort of indicates to me that people are making very big changes to their habits. It's a Monday, but it's not half-term week. London, I have to tell you, London today has been virtually deserted. So I sense that people are beginning to change their habits. I sense that coronavirus concern in the United Kingdom, and I hope I'm wrong, but I sense it's barely begun. The number of cases is still only 40, but that is 50% up on where we were just 2 days ago, and I think we're headed for a very strange period. As I say, I really, honestly, truthfully hope that I am wrong. But tell me, are you changing your patterns of behaviour because of coronavirus? Let me know on 0345 6060 973. You can text to 84850. You can tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. And of course, you can watch us on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter and comment there too. Is your behaviour changing because of coronavirus? And I'm hearing reports of schools that are asking people who've been to Italy recently to perhaps go home for a few days. So there is a bit of caution. My own feeling is we should be concerned but not scared. The evidence is that whilst this disease is transmissible, it's not as scary in terms of transmission as things like measles. And in terms of being deadly, well, it's about the same level right now as winter flu, which we get every year, and every 2 or 3 years we get quite a big strain of it. And it is the elderly, it is those with severe respiratory conditions that are in the greatest danger. However, as I say, I think concern is really mounting now in people's minds, and I think we're in for a very, very strange couple of weeks. I hope I'm wrong. Jonathan, in Finchley. Jonathan, good evening to you.
Good evening, Nigel.
Are you changing your daily patterns and habits, Jonathan, or not?
Well, not through any choice, but I've got 3 trips coming up that are being cancelled. So I'm not going away. I'm going to be here.
So have you voluntarily cancelled them, Jonathan, or have they been cancelled on you?
Well, I mean, I could travel, but the events have been cancelled. So
right, and where were
one of them was Geneva Motor Show tomorrow, which has been cancelled.
The Geneva Motor Show has been cancelled. Right. Okay, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah.
Well, interesting. I mean, one of my sons was due to fly to Italy tomorrow for a sort of 2 or 3 day break, and he decided himself yesterday, do you know what? I'm not going. So these were 3 business trips, Jonathan, were they?
Yeah, but also I think, it makes sense for your son to cancel the trip because he doesn't know if he's going to be under kind of inverted commas suspicion having been there. It's a stigma, isn't it?
Well, equally, Jonathan, he doesn't know. He might stay in a hotel somewhere in northern Italy and find that he's actually quarantined for 2 or 3 weeks there.
Yeah, quarantined or just stigma when he comes back, People ask questions, and maybe in the future they'll ask, have you ever been to these places? I don't know, it's all a bit scary, really.
I'm doing my best here not to spread alarm. But I do sense that coronavirus concern is just beginning. But you use the word scary. Are you genuinely scared by it?
No, I'm not. I'm not scared at all by it. I think, panic and fear spreads beyond the facts and beyond reality. So I'm afraid of the fear that's spreading rather than the actual.
Absolutely. I'm with you on that totally. Thank you, Jonathan. Richard in Chelsea makes a point, and I have to say, I did comment yesterday morning sitting here that I'd come through Heathrow Airport, gone through passport control early in the morning with people, the masses coming in from all over the world. That's even without a third runway. And I was very struck that there was sort of no controls, no checks. And Richard in Chelsea says travel from China and the Far East should have been stopped weeks ago. And I think if the situation worsens, Richard, a lot of people will start to say that. Louise is calling from Archway. Louise, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. It's funny to hear you talking about something kind of not related to sort of the mainstream political field.
I tell you what, Louise, this is. I bet you, by this time next week, this will be the mainstream, and we won't be talking about much else.
So anyway, in terms of my take is that it's really important that we obviously do take hygiene a bit more seriously, and I have noticed myself personally kind of cleaning my hands a bit more and using, when available, these alcohol sanitizers. But I just think panicking is not the answer, and I would actually, on this occasion, have to agree with you that, scaremongering isn't going to get us anywhere. This is an airborne, transmittable virus. There's not a massive amount you can do to avoid it unless you do completely isolate yourself, which probably isn't great for your mental health and probably not very good for your stress levels, which is going to make you more susceptible to catching a virus anyway. Let
alone, dare I say it, the economy.
I think that's one of the most worrying factors of this is that, whilst you can kind of look at it 2 ways. In some ways, it's quite good because we've seen that in terms of our environment, there's been a drop in kind of pollution emission levels due to the fact that a lot of factories have been closed down in China. But at the same time, there's going to be a knock-on effect from that because at some point there's going to be a backlog of products that we're not going to be able to import. And that's going to have a dramatic impact on how we can function and then how the global kind of stock market functions.
And supplies, Louise. I had a first-hand account of somebody at Charing Cross Station not a couple of hours ago in a chemist's, and three customers in a row asking to buy hand sanitizer to be told they'd sold out.
Left. I know. I think people are stockpiling the alcohol hand. To be quite honest. So I think what we might see is a huge boom in terms of the industry, cleaning industries, people who produce these products. They're obviously going to have a massive rise in their shares. But in terms of other industries, they're going to have a massive, problem, especially the hospitality industry. If people stop going abroad, some of these places in Europe and Southern Europe, they really rely heavily on the kind of Easter trade.
But there may be some upsides for those on the seaside. Who's to say? Louise, thank you. And I'm going to go to the seaside. I'm going to Clacton-on-Sea to speak to Bob, who's a new caller. Bob, it sounds like Clacton could be pretty busy this Easter.
Hello, Nigel.
Hello
and
there.
I just have to say to you, just very quickly, I saw you in April at the pier last year, and like most of the town, we nearly cheered you out of the town on our shoulders.
Well, I'd rather be cheered in than cheered out, but hey.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
So, Bob, we are hearing that holiday bookings for Easter are up, so if there is a silver lining, it's for our seaside and other resorts. But how is the coronavirus affecting your life? Or are you just carrying on as normal?
Well, I have to say it's actually having no impact up here, as far as I can tell, on the East Coast. I have not seen a single person walking around in a mask. I've not seen anybody going slightly cranky about the possibility of being infected. Now, we heard yesterday there was an incident in, I think it was Writtle, just outside Chelmsford, which is not too far from here. But nonetheless, right, I think we have to ask ourselves a very simple question. Where do these viruses actually spring from in the first place? And the point I'm trying to make is that in this part of China, where seemingly most of the deaths have occurred, that's where it seems to be the epicenter of this
Wuhan,
thing. Okay. Also, right, if we go back a couple of years when it comes to germ warfare, when we think of what happened with the Novichok incident, that was an incident that seemed to happen on the very cusp of Portland Down, which seems to be very, sort of a place where we have a very
Bob, I do. Yeah, I remember the Salisbury. I remember the Salisbury poisoning and Portland Down. Our chemical weapons centre is 4 miles outside. I do remember that, and I do know, Bob, that some have said that coronavirus is something that was produced in a laboratory in Wuhan and was possibly being stored up by the Chinese for germ warfare. I don't believe a word of it, Bob. I have to tell you. You may be right, but I don't believe a word of it. This is the Nigel Farage Show. It is 6:15. Time for the news headlines with Holly Jones.
The government is to publish its coronavirus action plan tomorrow following an emergency COBRA meeting. The number of cases here has risen to 40. Claims the Home Secretary bullied her most senior advisor, leading him to quit, are going to be investigated. Priti Patel denies the accusations. The director of one of the architecture firms behind the refurbishment of Grenfell Tower has apologised for the fire, telling the bereaved and survivors it really shouldn't have happened. LBC weather, further showers for many northern and western parts of the UK tonight. Drier over eastern and southern England, a low of -2.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. There are queues on the M1 southbound because of an accident before junction 10 for Luton Airport, where one lane is shut. It's also slow on the M1 southbound after emergency repairs at junction 8 for Hemel Hempstead earlier on, but all the lanes are open again there. On the M25 anti-clockwise, it's slow from junction 7 for the M23 to Clackett lane services because of the roadworks. There are queues on the A12 going out of town. That's after a van broke down earlier between the Lee interchange and the Green Man roundabout in Leytonstone. It's very slow in Finchley. Ballards Lane is partly blocked in both directions at Finchley Central Station. That's because of an accident. And on the underground, there are minor delays on the Central Line because of a shortage of drivers.
This is LBC.
When your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics. Get advice from your local pharmacy or search NHS Choices.
This is LBC.
How are you? How are you really? Modern life can be busy, and sometimes it's easier to look after others before looking after yourself. But there's only one you. And making small changes to your lifestyle now could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. So take the first step to a healthier you with our free How Are You quiz. See how you score and get personalised tips and support. From how to eat a little healthier to turning a 10-minute walk into exercise. Just search 1U.
Wait a sec. Is that the sound of a football commentator who's just bought a used car from Kazoo? Yeah, it is. He's done it completely online, and it comes with a 7-day money-back guarantee, so he's got time to make sure he really loves it. He's happy about that. Get in. Can you buy a used car online with 7 days to decide? Kazoo, yeah you can. Kazoo, the new way to buy a used car.
You're listening to the sound of a Halifax customer who used to worry she wasn't saving enough, but is now saving the change every time she runs out of milk. Switch on Save the Change, and when you use your Halifax Visa debit card, we'll round up to the nearest pound and put the difference into your chosen Halifax savings accounts.
We got it at Selco. it's where the trade goes.
At Selco, we've screwed down our prices on everyday building products. We've permanently lowered prices on our best-selling lines across Unifix, Spax and Vortex screws. Like 5x100mm Unifix general purpose wood screws, now only £4.49 ex-VAT for a pack of 100. See selcobw.com for more details. Selco, serving the trade for 125 years.
We've got it at Selco. Selco, it's where the trade goes.
That's charged at 20%.
Global Player,
Radio, playlists and podcasts.
where it's all together and all for free.
Whatever your mood, whatever you're doing, and wherever you're going.
Global Player. Download it from your App Store for free now. This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Hundreds of flights being cancelled. The British Airways have just confirmed they're cancelling 226 flights over the course of the next few weeks. We haven't yet got the figures from Ryanair, but we are expecting other airlines to follow, and that is because simply large numbers of people are cancelling their bookings, whether they get their money back or not. And I guess if you were booked to go to Northern Italy, right at the minute you might think, do you know what? Might be nice for a couple of days, but what if I get stuck in a hotel? What if I get quarantined for weeks? And that's putting people off. Dave says, we need to take this virus seriously. Complacency will be our downfall. Well, yesterday I spoke to the boss of the British Medical Association, Dr. Nagpal, and I asked him, what should we be doing?
We have, up to now, managed to contain the spread of the virus, and that's important to note. Having said that, we must be vigilant. There's no room for complacency. And we know that, remember, the UK is a global hub of international travel, so the situation could change at any moment. So whilst we are putting these efforts to contain, there needs to be, and there are plans to escalate measures should it spread further within the UK. We know that by washing your hands, you are basically getting rid of the virus, which then you wouldn't transmit on when you touch other surfaces or shake someone else's hand. So that's critically important. Having said that, there are other measures too. We know it's important to use a tissue if you sneeze or cough and bin it straight away. Also, of course, at this moment in time, if anyone has returned from an area of high risk or has been in contact with anyone who may have the virus or suspected of having the virus, they need to self-isolate. So the self-isolation measures are really important, and not to walk into your GP surgery or to your casualty and to call NHS 111. So there are a range of measures, but one, of course, is around personal hygiene in washing hands.
Tell me, as a GP in Harrow, how do you assess the public mood? Are they concerned? Are they worried? Are they scared?
I mean, there's a spread of views, and of course, there are, for any situation, you have people who can be very, very worried and frightened, and it's important to allay their anxieties. And there are others who may not be quite aware of the potential seriousness and how rapid the situation could change. What we need is a very clear, consistent public message. At the moment, if a patient has any suspicions of either being in contact with the virus or having returned from an area they may be concerned about internationally, what they need to do is ring NHS 111. Do not panic and come to your GP surgery. We've had instances where a patient, so we had last week, one patient attended a GP surgery who may have been infected with the virus, and for simply a sick note, and the surgery had to close for the whole day whilst it was being decontaminated. Yeah. So these are small measures,
but that's important,
but it really is something we need to put across. We also do need to make sure we look after those patients who are not coming out to their GP surgery, if they are self-isolating, especially if they're older patients. So I think we need a very clear, consistent message. Do not panic, but also make sure that if you are concerned, don't expose yourself to others and call NHS 111.
That's the advice from the British Medical Association. But some people are scared out there, and some of them with justification. Angela on Facebook says to me, Nigel, I've had to change my patterns of behaviour because I have lung disease and no immune system due to medication. So I'm now shut in at home. No one comes in, not even my family and grandchildren. I can imagine, Angela, for people like you, this is a very, very worrying time. For most of the adult, healthy population, there is not that much to worry about. It's like a bad cold, it's like flu. But for those who might develop pneumonia, etc., it is pretty worrying. Washing hands is the key. Del from Swindon says, Nigel, my habits have really changed. I'm sad to say I've stopped going to the pub on account of the fact people there don't wash their hands properly. Well, there we are. Del's pub is missing out. Let's go up to Whitehaven in Cumbria and speak to Robin. Robin, good evening to you.
Hello, Nigel.
Good evening. So, I mean, you're way up there on the coast, a little bit isolated from the big cities. Is it still affecting you?
Yes, it definitely is. You can see there's panic on the streets.
Panic?
I think people are concerned. I have changed my habits myself. I won't go over to any of the larger towns or the cities. I certainly won't be using the trains or buses. I won't be going on holiday this year. And I think other people should follow suit, if not for themselves, have a bit of consideration for people with lowered immune systems. I really think the government should be doing more. We should have hand sanitizer mandatory at supermarkets and public places. I think there's a lot more we could be doing, but I've certainly changed my behaviour patterns and that.
Certainly on the hand sanitizer point, Robin, I'd never even really thought about it until about 2.5 years ago. And funny enough, actually, it was after a big lineup and a big group of photographs that I was sitting down talking to, believe it or not, Donald Trump. And he got out a bottle of hand sanitizer and he said, actually, this makes sense when you've shaken hundreds of people's hands. And I'd never really thought about it much before that. But last year, when I was doing the Brexit Party stuff in the run-up to the European elections, actually, I started carrying it with me. So I think it probably does make a lot of sense. Robin, I suspect your story is typical of many in the country. Thank you for your call. And people are changing their behaviour. It's happening. Jason in Epsom, very much backing up what I said about London. He said, I've just walked through from the city and across London Bridge, and it was noticeably quieter. I'm guessing people are avoiding public transport as best they can. Jason, I don't know whether that's true, but certainly our previous caller, is not leaving his coastal town of Whitehaven at the moment. Frank is a new caller from Middlesex. Frank, good evening.
Hi, Nigel. Great to talk to you.
Welcome.
I'm ringing you. My girlfriend's Chinese, and yesterday I dropped her off at the airport.
Yes.
She lives in Hong Kong.
Oh, wow.
She's been over here 2 months. When she came here, she had no problem. When she went to check in and to get her boarding pass, it wouldn't allow her to have it. And when she got to the airport, they asked her questions whether she had come from China, Italy, all these countries, and only then they would let her board. And then she sent me a picture on the plane. An earlier flight was cancelled.
Yes.
And they put her on a late flight.
Yes.
And that was virtually empty going back to Hong Kong.
Yeah, and that's why the earlier flight was cancelled.
That was right. And the second one was virtually empty.
Yeah. Frank, do you know something?
She's meant to be...
Do you know something, Frank? I think the story you've just told me I find mildly reassuring.
Yeah.
Because, if they are doing some checks... but that's a check on someone going out. What checks are we doing on people coming in? And it strikes me it's been zero.
Yeah, well, the thing is, she's meant to be coming back to go to Holland in April. She's going to fly from Hong Kong to Holland to do a 10-day cruise. Now, already... I'm thinking that ain't going to happen.
The risk factors there all round, Frank, don't sound right at the moment, do they?
No, and the thing is, what will happen is, and what is happening to certain people from certain countries, they're getting to their destination, the travel agents are saying everything's fine, but then the operator of the second part of the journey is turning people down, especially Chinese, and saying, sorry, we don't want you.
Well, Frank, I think the same is going to start happening to people from northern Italy too. And
I think so, yeah.
Frank, tell me, were you planning to go on the cruise yourself?
No, I wasn't. She's meant to be coming with her sister.
Right.
And it's cost a lot of money, but the agent's saying everything's fine. Now, I can't see that, and I'm thinking, well, and she said it's a lot of money to pay. If I get to Holland and they say, sorry, you've got to go into 2-week quarantine, the cruise is only 10 days.
Yeah.
And can you get a refund? And what's going to... Is she just going to have to fly back home?
No.
And then go back into quarantine? You don't know.
No. Well, Frank, my son lives in Hong Kong. One of my sons lives in Hong Kong. And he said the whole place is virtually shut down. So, listen, good luck for her. And, Frank, thank you. And I'm mildly reassured that some checks were being done today at Heathrow on people leaving, but not on people coming. Christine makes a very good point. Why don't people wash their hands anyway? Why would you need to be instructed? Christine, coughs and sneezes spread diseases. Weren't we all told that as kids? Has that disappeared? Are we not teaching kids this sort of stuff anymore? I don't know. Alex is calling from Fleet in Hampshire. Alex, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. How are you?
I am well. Are you one of these people who says, the hell with it, I'm going to continue as normal, or have you made some changes?
Well, I was one of those people to hell with it until today, actually. My father contacted me because myself and my wife, every year, we go to Centre Parks.
Yes.
For a luxury spa weekend away where you get massages and my wife gets facials and nails done and all the rest. I was starting to think, should I be doing that? I noticed earlier when you broadcast about people booking British holiday places.
Yes.
But Centre Parks have a notice across the things that, at the moment, nothing to worry about, but they are taking advice from the government. So my concern is, are they going to shut down the park or elements of the park where there's a lot of people? Do I want someone massaging me and being up close and personal who's been massaging many people? And, it's just made me start thinking, do I want to go away for this weekend? I suffer with asthma. My young daughter has a kidney issue. Do I want to risk being around somebody who's been in close contact with many people?
Make you thoughtful.
And this isn't a British holiday. There's nothing doing me getting home or anything. This is me worried about, is this going to spread?
Alex, I think the fact that you'd said that today is the day you started thinking about it kind of chimes with what I said at 6 o'clock at the top of the show. I think coronavirus concern is really beginning in earnest today. And look, if I had asthma, I might be a little bit concerned too. But I think, if you didn't have asthma, Alex, I'd say, well, maybe there's no reason to be concerned. But Alex, thank you for your call. Folks, there is a big change going on out there. It's happening as we speak. This is the Nigel Farage Show. It's 6:30. Time for the news with Holly Jones.
4 more cases of the coronavirus have been diagnosed in the UK, bringing the total number here to 40. All of them had recently travelled to Italy, which has the most number infected outside Asia, and 52 deaths. It's understood a second person in the US has now died from the virus. The Prime Minister says there's going to be an investigation into claims of bullying against the Home Secretary. Priti Patel's most senior civil servant resigned on Saturday, saying he'd been the victim of a vicious and orchestrated campaign. She denies bullying staff. Michel Barnier says the EU is approaching post-Brexit trade talks with the UK with a constructive spirit. The EU's chief Brexit negotiator says Europe wants a fair and ambitious partnership after the first talks started in Brussels. LBC weather, further showers for many northern and western parts of the UK tonight. Drier over eastern and southern England, a low of -2.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Weekday mornings from 7. LBC.
The war seeming not so homely in the Home Office of Philip Brutnam calling in news cameras as he delivered an unprecedented statement accusing his former boss of being both a bully and a liar, and he was standing down. Let's talk to someone though who has been at the head of the civil service. I speak of Bob now Lord Kerslake.
Look, he wouldn't have done that unless he was under extreme pressure, taken to the limit and beyond.
But wasn't it on his watch that Amber Rudd was given actually what proved to be fatally incorrect and professionally?
Well, absolutely right. There was a review of that, and I wasn't at that point asked to resign.
Lastly, it's interesting though, isn't it? 2 female bosses and both of whom he couldn't get on with.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With Simply Safe. Easy to choose, set up and use.
LBC.
London's air pollution affects everyone's health, especially children. The main cause? Road transport. By swapping just one car trip every week for walking, cycling or public transport, we can help make London's air cleaner together.
About 18 months ago, I invested in a bike. I was being really lazy and driving to work. I get to work much quicker. I've saved, I reckon, nearly $2,000 by cycling.
See how the Mayor and TfL are working towards cleaner air and how you can help too at lbc.co.uk.
Keep coming. Yeah, bit more.
At Hey Car, you'll find the best used cars all in one place. Every car is quality checked and comes with a warranty. So finding your perfect used car is easy. You just need somewhere to park it.
Back. Whoa. Yeah, great. Stop.
To find your perfect used car, search Hey Car.
Can I have chemo at home?
It's only suitable for a couple of types of cancer.
It depends on the type of treatment.
You have to go to a
When you search one question about cancer, you end up with millions of results which contradict each other. For clear and uncomplicated information, come to Cancer Research UK. Visit us online or give us a call on 0808 800 40 40. Cancer Research UK. Together, we will beat cancer.
Okay, everyone, circuits. I want to see you all give it 110%. There's no rest yet until you sweat. 20 push-ups. Go! Proper ones. Feel the burn.
Or leave the motivation to Vitality. Take out our life insurance and you could save up to 40% on a Garmin fitness watch to help you keep an eye on your activity levels, however you stay active. Now that's real motivation. Just search Vitality Life. Life's better with Vitality. Variable discount. Postage and packaging terms and conditions apply.
A change is coming. Millions of people across the UK are realising that if their broadband's out of contract, they could be out of pocket. So it's time to switch and save with Vodafone Superfast Broadband for £21.95 a month. Join the Great British Broadband switch today. The future's exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
18-month contract subject to credit check. Publicly available out of contract non-promotional pricing. Superfast 1, 73% of customers receive sync speeds above 35 megabits per second. See vodafone.co.uk/broadband.
This is the sound of confidence being made in the British Army. Did you get that? Here, past the rain. Past the shouting. To that. Right there. The sound of a soldier unclipping from their first mountain abseil, now ready to overcome any obstacle. The sound of confidence that lasts a lifetime being made. Find where you belong. Search Army Jobs.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
Coronavirus concern is growing and British Airways have cancelled 226 flights. Lots of reports, and we heard one just before the break. Chap said his girlfriend had flown back to Hong Kong this morning. Her earlier flight had been cancelled. The passengers clearly bundled up onto two aeroplanes, and even that one was pretty empty. Before I get back to how much is this affecting your life, what changes are you making, the British Army is going back into a battle zone again, and it's a story that I don't think has really had enough publicity. You know, we know that militarily ISIS suffered a very, very big defeat in one part of the Middle East, but that's not the end of the story. Let's catch up with this and join Major General Tim Cross. Tim, good evening to you.
Aye. Good evening.
Good evening. So I'm told the British Army is heading off to a place called Sahel. Can you explain to people where that is?
Yes, it's in Africa, the north of Africa, on the western side. So it's sort of, if you think of Libya and Egypt and so forth, it's further left and a bit further down.
Right.
We've actually had people there for quite a while. We've had 3 Chinook helicopters supporting the French, with about 100 soldiers supporting them, and the Chinooks come from RAF Odium, which is actually not very far away from where I live. So, and this deployment, extra deployment, has been on the cards for some time, actually.
And are we sending troops to... I mean, it's been described as the most dangerous peacekeeping operation in the world, but in reality, is it peacekeeping or is it fighting ISIS?
Well, it's more the latter than the former, I would say. There is a UN peacekeeping force there, quite a large one, but to be honest, it's not been particularly effective. So we're going into, I suppose, in the jargon, we would call it a peace enforcement campaign. But in reality, there's no peace to keep. I mean, this is undoubtedly a counterinsurgency campaign that's been running for quite a long time. And yeah, we're going to be part of it. And in terms of what's going on elsewhere, and there are a number of UN peacekeeping missions, and we've got people deployed in places like Somalia and so forth elsewhere. But this is quite a nasty campaign. The French have been there for a long time, and they've taken some casualties,
yes.
And it doesn't seem to be getting any better.
Yes, I mean, 200 deaths amongst UN peacekeepers.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. And the French, as I say, have taken some. The French are not part of the UN force. They're sort of slightly to one side of that.
But is it not? I mean, you know, we send off troops to get involved, as you say. There's no peace to keep. It is a mission, and we may or may not, but we may well take British casualties, and yet all of this seems to happen without any level of public debate whatsoever.
Well, I think that's true. If I'm being brutal about it from your perspective, I have to say from my own perspective, I've been aware of this for some time. It's been something that the government have been talking about. The French have been asking us to get more engaged. They asked us for the Chinook support. They've asked us for other support as well. And it is quite an important mission. And the bottom line is the Americans, of course, have been stuck in Afghanistan, and the rest of Europe, to be honest, hasn't really got the capabilities that are required. So I happen to think this is quite an important deployment. I mean, there is a danger of casualties. Of course there are.
Yes.
Casualties, you could argue, is the only certainty of any operation. So I'm afraid that is certainly a possibility, probably a probability. But it is an important campaign, and I think we're right to be involved with it.
Thank you very much. That was Major General Tim Cross talking about our troops going into an area of the Sahara and the Sahel, taking on ISIS and likely to take casualties. And, I'm not for one moment arguing we should go soft on ISIS, but I do think if there are military deployments in which we're likely to lose British lives, there ought to be at least some preliminary debate in Parliament about it. It's my view. Now, breaking news is Amy Klobuchar is ending her Democratic presidential campaign and plans to endorse Joe Biden. This follows Pete Buttigieg earlier on ending his campaign. So the list of runners and riders for the Democratic nomination is narrowing down. It's Bernie Sanders, Mike Bloomberg, Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden. Tomorrow is Super Tuesday. Tomorrow is the day when there will be primaries in 14 American states, including California, which is by far the most populous state in America, and Texas, another one of the real biggies. In fact, in total tomorrow, of the delegate votes that come in for the Democratic convention later this year, tomorrow accounts for about a third of all of those delegates that will go to vote. At the moment, or as of the weekend, Bernie Sanders was miles ahead in California and considerably ahead, although not hugely, but considerably ahead in Texas. But Joe Biden did win, quite a big success in South Carolina. And what you can see are these more moderate candidates that are withdrawing. It looks like they're lining up behind Joe Biden. So it appears to be coming down to a two-horse race, but don't underestimate Elizabeth Warren's debating skills and don't underestimate Mike Bloomberg's bank balance. Already, he spent it's hard to believe some of this stuff. He spent $500 million of his own money. And there are many that think if Bloomberg can't win Texas, then frankly, his race is effectively over. So tomorrow night, as these results come in, we could be at a point where Bernie Sanders becomes unstoppable, unless, of course, these other withdrawals from more moderate figures put Biden up into a serious contest with him. We'll be watching that very, very carefully tomorrow and, of course, the day after. Back to coronavirus. How is it affecting your life on the day when British Airways cancelled 226 flights because people are just not flying? James is a new caller from Woking in Surrey. James, good evening.
Good afternoon, Nigel. First time caller, long time listener.
Well, welcome. So, are you seeing a change of behaviour?
Absolutely. I mean, I work in a estate agency in Woking.
Yes.
And we get a lot of foreign investors come.
James, I want to talk to you. The line is absolutely rotten. Going to drop you and pick you up again in a moment. Going to Mary, a new caller from Finchley. Mary, good evening.
Hi there. I'm elderly, got lots of conditions. I'm booked on two separate cruises in March and April.
Yes.
And I'm also booked to go to a holiday camp in June. Now, for the life of me, I can't see the difference between staying in London, walking around supermarkets, getting into minicabs, eating in a restaurant, and going on holiday. If it's unsafe on to go on a cruise, they will tell me. But I don't see the point in cancelling anything unless you sit at home, go nowhere, and then hope that somebody who might come and deliver something to your home hasn't got coronavirus. You can't not go on a bus. You can't not go into a taxi. You can't not eat out.
Yes,
so what's the difference if you're doing it in a nice environment on a cruise or a holiday camp And I can't see why, what all the fuss is about. I'm not saying I don't see why people are concerned, but why are you safer to stay at home in London?
Well, I guess the argument, Mary, would be that if you're staying on a cruise ship, there are a very, very large number of human beings in a very close physical proximity, far more so than there would be in Finchley.
Have you ever walked round Piccadilly Circus or gone into a restaurant?
All right. I tell you what, you got me there. You got me there. All right, I give in. You win the argument. I was thinking about you being in Finchley, but no, you're right. Or I tell you what, or the Northern Line, or whatever it may be. No, Mary, I tell you what, you make a very fair and reasonable point, and I thank you for the call. There you are. 1-0 to Mary on that one, without any shadow of a doubt. Let's go to James in Woking again. James, hello.
Hi, can you hear me this time?
That's far better. Now, I was asking you, are your habits changing or your clients' habits? Because you're an estate agent.
Yeah, so obviously Woking, we get a lot of foreign investment, especially from the Middle East, whether China, Japan. We get so many people come into the office, and it's getting to the point now where we're sort of saying to people, have you been to these countries fairly recently? How long have you been in the country for? And it sounds quite silly, but we've got a huge tub that the entire staff use to wash our hands every so often because we shake hands so frequently. I had a case the other day, actually, on Saturday, where I went into someone's house to do a background check on them for anti-money laundering purposes. And I'd never met the clients before, and they had tenants living in the building. And they said, oh, yeah, we've just come back from Hong Kong. And I thought, well, you haven't got coronavirus, have you? And they said, oh, no, we're in the process of self-isolating. And at that point, I said, goodbye.
Yeah, no, James, I can imagine. And of course, there you were, and some would say you were being prejudiced against those people because they come back from Hong Kong, but it is understandable human nature. And gosh, I don't know quite where we go with this, but I do sense concern is growing by the hour in this country. I hope it doesn't turn to fear. I don't think it will. It's 6:45. Time for the news headlines with Holly Jones.
4 more people in the UK have tested positive for the coronavirus, all having returned from Italy, bringing the total number to 40. Another Democrat hoping to take on Donald Trump for the US presidency has dropped out of the race. Amy Klobuchar now plans to endorse Joe Biden. The Cabinet Office is to look into claims the Home Secretary bullied her most senior official, forcing him to resign. Priti Patel denies the accusations. LBC weather, further showers for many northern and western parts of the UK tonight. Drier over eastern and southern England, a low of -2.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. They're accused on the M1 southbound because of an accident before junction 10 for Luton Airport, so one lane is closed. It's also slow on the M1 southbound after some emergency repairs earlier at junction 8 for Hemel Hempstead, but all the lanes are now open there. They're accused on the A12 out of town after a van broke down earlier between the Lee interchange and the Green Man roundabout in Leytonstone. It's very slow in Finchley on Ballards Lane. That's partly blocked in both directions at Finchley Central Station because of an accident. On the trains, London Overground have severe delays from Stratford to Richmond and Clapham Junction because of a fault on a train, and on the Tube there are now minor delays on the Central Line.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
At 9, how much is the threat of coronavirus affecting business and the economy? Plus, our Monday night panel at 8 looks ahead to Super Tuesday.
Ian Dale on LBC.
When did the word free stop meaning free? Buy one, get one free. Wait 6 months and then it's free. How about something a little more clear? When you buy car or home insurance, you can choose a free gift with Confused.com rewards, like Green Flag breakdown cover, a £20 Domino's or Halfords voucher, or a Now TV pass. Don't be confused. Be Confused.com. Available on single annual policies. Now TV 18+. Full T's and C's online.
Teaching shapes lives. If you're thinking of becoming a teacher, our expert teaching advisors can give you the level of support you need to get one step closer to the classroom. Teaching. Every lesson shapes a life. Search Get Into Teaching. Advisor support subject to eligibility.
Your new neighbour is a musician. His creative peak is at 3 a.m. They're doing roadworks next to your house. A famous teen star moves onto your street. There's always a reason to travel. Fly with Lufthansa's incredible fares around the world to destinations like Nairobi, Cape Town or Johannesburg. Book now on Lufthansa.com. Conditions apply.
Say yes to the world. Lufthansa.
You're 169 in the queue.
I proposed on the 169. She got off at the next stop.
You're my 169th greatest lover.
The number 169 never screamed going places until now. Get the Toyota Aygo X-Plate for only £169 deposit, then £169 a month with 0% APR representative. Just go. Aygo.
0% APR representative on new sales of Aygo X-Plate over 48 months. £169 per month. Customer deposit of £169 when proposed and approved via Access Toyota by 31st of March 2020. £3,311.25p optional final payment. Subject to status to over 18s. Indemnities may be required. Conditions apply. Toyota Financial Services.
You know what it's like when you can't find your debit card? Panic. That's what it's like. Until you realise, as a Halifax Visa debit card holder, that you can freeze your card on the spot. Control your Halifax Visa debit card with the Halifax mobile app. Easy as.
You can only freeze certain transaction types. Terms and conditions apply.
Sheila from Birkdale writes, I arrived at yours with such excitement. You looked and smelled phenomenal. We drove to the beach. We found a secluded spot, and then after 5 minutes, you were all gone. Your 2 juicy patties, crisp lettuce, onions, cheese, and Big Mac sauce. Finished.
You can now spend even longer with the taste you love with the Grand Big Mac, but only until the 24th of March. Served after 11 a.m, subject to availability, participating restaurants only.
Oh, hello there. My name's Worcester. Now, as a cat, I'm a bit of an expert when it comes to warmth. So imagine how cat-a-hoop I was to find out my humans had installed a new Worcester Bosch Green Star 8000 style boiler. Not only does it look perfect, it comes with a 12-year guarantee and has even been awarded a Which Best Buy. It really is the the cat's whiskers. To be as warm as Worcester, search worcesterbosch.co.uk.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
We're talking coronavirus and how it's changing your habits on a day when British Airways cancels 226 flights, and a significant day in terms of the Brexit process, because 100 negotiators today turned up in Brussels to meet Barnier and his team. There are 11 individual sectors that are being negotiated. One significant thing, Guy Verhofstadt, who I always thought was a complete ranting maniac, and has appeared many times in the LBC studio with Nick Ferrari and others. He was the European Parliament's chief negotiator. He's not anymore. They've got someone called David McAllister, who is an Anglo-German, he's German MEP for Mrs Merkel's party, who I think is going to be a much more reasonable person to deal with. And the British government are getting off on the right foot. Their aim is to have friendly cooperation between sovereign equals while each side respects the other's legal autonomy. And we are getting off on the right foot. And all right, the French are saying, if you don't let us catch all your fish, well, they're talking about blockading the channel. I mean, it's also almost back to the early 1800s, but I don't actually think that is going to happen. And I do, for the first time, think there is half a chance of us getting a reasonable trade deal done at some point this year. Simultaneously, Liz Truss has kick-started US talks as well. And can I say, not before time. A lot of people in America last week, a lot of American politicians, some of them quite senior, were actually saying to me, are you guys actually serious? And are you serious about wanting a trade deal with us? Because there's been too little action from the British government. So at least some forward movement, how much I'm not sure, but some forward movement there as well. So now the people are telling me they can't buy hand sanitizer. Judy is calling, a new caller from Brentwood. Judy, is that right? You couldn't buy any hand sanitizer?
Yes, you know what, I was thinking of the importance of being earnest when he went down for some cucumbers and he couldn't get any, not even for ready money. And I went round Brentwood today and I couldn't get any, not even for ready money.
Right. Now, Judy, I've got some advice for you. Because Gus says to me on Facebook, you can buy... You can buy... Well, that's externally or internally, entirely your choice, But
I haven't any.
Gus says you can buy hand sanitizer online. I was flicking through earlier and there were loads. So can you
really?
Can you go online, Judy?
Well, I get my daughter to do it.
Right, well, get your daughter to do it because Gus says you can. So do you think that in Brentwood people have been out just panic buying?
Absolutely. I've got friends that are buying food in, all sorts of things. And I think, well, what's the matter? I mean, how much food can you put in? You know what I mean?
Well, I suppose
you can only live your life, can't you?
Tin sardines and baked beans and things. Well, I like tin sardines actually, but
well, there you are.
So yeah, no. Clearly, Judy, people are. I suppose some people are preparing for the worst, aren't they?
They really are. But you know what? I think you just got to live your life. After all, if you get ill, you get ill, and if you know what I mean, you can only do your best, can't you?
Well, I've always tried, but also I've always tried. But Judy, there are also sensible precautions, and I agree with you. I think we've more or less got to get on with our lives as best we can. But I am seeing changes of behaviour. But Judy, if you said to me that you had a serious lung condition, then I might suggest staying at home for a couple of weeks might be a good idea.
Oh, absolutely. Of course you would. And I mean, if, a little baby or whatever, I mean, you've got to be sensible, haven't you?
Yeah.
But I mean, I was playing bowls this morning and as I came out, so I used my last bit of hand sanitizer. And I mean, I'm sure nobody's got anything, but I just thought, oh, well.
Yeah, no, I know. Judy, get your daughter to go online, please. Thank you very much indeed for your call. And if you are concerned about your health, if you worry that you may have contracted this illness, call 111. You will get free medical advice. Don't, as we were urged yesterday, turn up to a packed GP surgery, because that is how this thing spreads. And in reality, there may not be that much they can do for you unless you're in an acute condition. And if your condition's acute, you'll need an ambulance and go to a hospital. All right? Mark says, I am not changing my habits. I'm still off to the USA next month. Mark, I'm afraid, that is very much my feeling as well. Andy says, flu will not keep me away from the pub, and I always wash my hands anyway. Andy, I'm absolutely with you, I have to say. Steve is a new caller from Southampton. Steve, good evening.
Hi, Nigel. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. So, are people's habits in Southampton changing?
Well, I hope so. But it's difficult to know what everyone else is doing. But I work in retail, work face-to-face with the elderly infirm.
Yes.
A lot of our products come from the Far East. Mm-hmm. I'm 50 years old. I've got asthma. I live in a city. My honeymoon's on a cruise ship. So, but I'm not getting down about it. But you start realising you might be in that 1 or 2%.
Well, Steve, yeah. No, I mean, you're right. It is. 1.5% of people that have contracted this thing that we know of have died. Although probably, Steve, there are a lot more people that had caught it and didn't even know it. So it may even be lower than that. Steve, if you felt you were...
If it doesn't get me down, you got to get on with it. What will happen, you just take the precautions, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And are you using hand sanitizer, Steve, and being a bit more cautious than normal?
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
but not in an extreme, in a panicky way. You just sort of be sensible, basically.
Yeah, no, agreed, Steve, thank you. Grant says, my biggest worry is Premier League games may well be affected. Well, they may well be affected. What about the Six Nations rugby? Already, the game in Italy has been postponed. Let's go to Katie, who's a new caller from round the corner in Westminster. Katie, good evening.
Hi, how are you?
I am well. Have you changed your habits, Katie?
Yes, I have. I'm just sort of taking sensible precautions, but I'm really most worried about my parents who are in their 80s.
Yep.
Because I think what I think is really lacking out of government information is who is really at risk. So the 2.3% mortality rate is a little bit misleading. First of all, with the original cases, the fatality rate was 8.3%. So you can assume 2.3% is when you have a few cases, and when you have an epidemic and the hospitals are overloaded and you have insufficient ventilators to ventilate those who need it, that the fatality rate will go up.
Well,
and the people,
I'm not sure in percentage terms that's true, Katie, but in absolute terms it would be, yes. But Boris Johnson has reassured us that the National Health Service can cope?
Yeah. Well, so in winter pressures previously, extreme measures have been taken. So beds have been put in places where they shouldn't exist, and decisions have had to be made about which people to ventilate based on who would survive. And that is actually true. And I think what the public needs to know is if you have conditions like cardiovascular disease, but also diabetes, chronic respiratory disease, hypertension or cancer, your death rate is going to be at least 3 times higher than the touted 2.3%.
Yeah, there are, of course, there are in those, no, you're quite right, in those categories there are people who are much, much more at risk. Katie, I understand that, I know that, I do sense a lot of concern growing in the country. Nigel, I came back from Thailand last week. I stayed in a hotel with a lot of Chinese people. I sat and spoke with a nice man from Hong Kong. I took 6 different flights in 14 days. I did not feel nervous about coronavirus, I still don't. In Thailand, there was an army of cleaners out there scrubbing everything people touch, every shopping mall, airport and hotel. We could learn a bit from the way the Asian countries are getting this in control, is the comment from Gordon in Boston. As I say, I hope I'm completely wrong, but I sense that coronavirus concern will only grow as this week develops. I'm back tomorrow at 6. At 10 tonight, it's Tom Swarbrick. Right now, it's Ian Dale.
You've been reading my blog, Nigel, because that's exactly what I wrote over the weekend. I totally agree with you there. Well, tomorrow night at 8 p.m, we're going to give you the opportunity of asking any question you like about the coronavirus to our panel of experts, how to avoid getting it, what exactly it is, and what can be done to prevent its spread. Well, tonight at 9, I want to know how the threat of the coronavirus is affecting your working life or your business. The stock market has plummeted. Economic growth will undoubtedly be affected. But how is the coronavirus affecting your particular part